Hi everyone, welcome to my How. I would like to present the projects that were most interesting and challenging to me. So let's start. The first project is patterns for designing with machines. It was inspired by MIT experiment where they fed an AI designs of dresses and then it dreamed of some other designs that they used to create nice garments. And I felt unsatisfied with this project because I wanted to challenge AI and push it to actually generate me some patterns that I could use to sew. So I collected a data set of 900 overalls patterns with different cleavage and sleeves, but they're all overalls. And I trained two models, one on 100 images and another on 900. What surprised me is that the first one was actually better for no describable reason. So I decided to use the first one as the material I would work with and the second one as a decor pattern to add to my overalls. Here you can see how I actually made it. I kind of guessed the shapes that I needed from what AI created in an attempt to build up a sewing pattern, and that's what I ended up with. You can notice that I used the squares from the original images to determine approximate size. You can kind of see them, and each was 10 centimeters. So it was doable, but I already saw that it's not going to be wearable. And that's what I made. You can see that it looks nice, and some might even say that it's beautiful and definitely looks wearable. But in fact, it requires you to have a hump. It will choke you if you manage to put it on. And the waist is extremely small and the thighs are extremely big. I find this project to be a nice metaphor for what guns can do right now. They can dream of something familiar and looking right, but in the end they have never worn any clothes, and us humans could not wear clothes designed by AI as well. This next project is my personal favorite from the semester, and it's also from designing with machines. It's called My Hometown, and it is about this hollow feeling when you immigrate and people can't really understand what you're describing, and I felt that AI also couldn't really understand what I was describing or what I was showing it, so I decided to explore and enhance this similarity, and I created this project. So I fed an AI 30 pictures of my hometown, Moscow, that I took with my friends that were creating an atmosphere that I loved and I missed. As you can see, some are quite funny to read. For example, this is definitely not a close-up of a large chocolate cake, but some are more empty in a way. When it gets it right, it feels the most hollow. So then I took the descriptions and I created some short texts out of them, basically just putting them into a sentence. And then I asked GPT-2 to tell me more about my hometown. So I fed it the sentences, and you can see in red is what I fed it, and in black is what it came up with. Then I asked Lyrebird to tell the story of my hometown. And the last one was Artbreeder. So I asked it what a forest is, a field is, and a pond is. Everything that was described by image to text. Here is the result.
Let me tell you about my hometown. There are a red fire hydrant in the middle of a forest and a bird perched on top of a tree branch. A small bird standing in the middle of a field. A surfboard laying on the sand near the ocean. A sunflower on the beach. A red leaf floating on a still pond. I try to read the meaning of each symbol, but the signs are meaningless, empty symbols. The only thing that is interesting about them is that they're made of something we don't have here. I don't know what they are made of, but there is something strange and out of place about them, almost as if the author is trying to create a contrast between his creations and the surroundings.
So yeah, that was my hometown. Okay, so the third project I would like to share with you is Crunchy for digital art. This assignment was about the creating world, and I decided to create something odd and awkward and non-human among humans. just minding its own business. And the name for this creature is Scrunchy because it just simply looks like a scrunchie, which I also found amazing. It just walks around and streams itself and everything around it to the internet with no intention, no agenda, and no understanding. It just observes and looks extremely cute. This idea was derived from originally my intention to create a generative stop motion where a thing moves from the camera flash and then the camera takes a picture because the thing moves. But it was slowly translating into Scrunchy, partially because of my technical abilities and partially, just naturally it was born. Here you can see a little bit more of Scrunchy. So it's a Raspberry Pi with a battery and 3 servo motors together. The project was maybe the most challenging for me from the technical perspective. But I loved it, even though it was stressful. I think that I learned a lot in this short period of time. And yeah, I'm quite weirdly attached to Scrunchy now. It feels like it's my creation and a pet. And I hope that it could walk around ArtEz more next semester and just stream some of us to the strangers on the internet. For this next project for meteorarchaeology, I was especially excited about the research stage. For a while I was fascinated with how influential our ways of self-identification are. We all know our age, surname, full name, date of birth, and assume that others also know that about themselves. It feels obvious and irrelevant. Yet these knowledge and classification are quite new and are specific to our society and the way our society functions. And I have researched first censuses. So census is when a government collects information about you, which usually happens every 10 years, but in the Netherlands it has not happened from 1971. But yeah, so I started researching that, and I found that back in the days people were writing everything by hand, and it was about 5 to 6 points of data, so like a name, surname, etc. I researched US, Netherlands, and Russia, and then the punch cards appeared, and you could already see that more and more information is collected because it could be stored on computers and it was easier to collect it. And now usually censuses take up to 6 pages, and they're all just squares for a machine to see. You just tick it many times and then you're done. So I took the census from 2002 from Russia and I decided to fill it in, but instead of writing, I embroidered my information into this patched blanket. And yeah, it was quite an interesting experience. It took about 2 hours to do all the 4 pages, and even though it looks scarce for us humans, I know that the machine or government has a lot of information about me on this small piece of textile. And the fun part was that after doing it for so long, I could now also recognize the data points that machine recognizes. So I could tell that, for example, this point is I have electricity in my house, and this point is I have a Russian citizenship. So even though I struggled with realization of this project, I found it quite interesting for myself. So the last project I want to share is Squeeze In for design of information spaces. My most favorite thing of this class was the notion of score, and I most enjoyed the first half where we were just observing movement. So I chose the toilets as my topic because I found that every day we make this absurd movement inside them and don't really notice it, or no one actually can observe it as well. So I wanted to bring it on the foreground. And meanwhile, I immensely enjoyed creating those graphical representations of movement here. And my final project you might have already squeezed into. To finalize, I just would like to say that a year ago I was extremely worried that I did not fit in and I had different interests and I wouldn't succeed in any of the spheres I was interested in. But now this semester kind of brought me the realization that I love being a hybrid of different spheres. I like illustration, writing, and I really enjoy improving my skills in, interaction design. So it's maybe like the best thing that I got from this semester was that I enjoy this serendipity of education, and I would like to enforce this diversity of things in my future practice. So, yeah, have nice holidays and thank you.